Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here, finally, with my review for the first two episodes of Genlock. Of course, we had the pilot and episode 2, which is There's Always Tomorrow. Definitely a great start to the series. I feel like this is always the thing. I don't really watch a ton of Rooster Teeth shows. It's really Ruby. I just recently binge watched like all of Red versus Blue. So like I just started watching that probably like last month, and I'm on the most current season now. And so it's been Ruby, Red versus Blue, and now Genlock. But man, really like the opening. I want to hear it a couple more times, so I thought it was good. Visually, it's very entertaining to watch because it's the different style compared to what I'm used to watching Ruby. So definitely fun. I love the opening. Love the sort of upbeat action of the opening. A couple of things, much like with Ruby, you see some stuff and it's like, okay, I can tell this is gonna happen or that's gonna happen. Like I was really curious going into episode 2 when they brought in the other pilots. I was like, all right, well when the opening kicks off, they have the one dude who turned out to be a traitor. He's just like flipping a coin by himself, and I'm like, all right, well they brought in 5 people, but there's already, they only show 5 mechs in the opening, and that one belongs to Chase, and then you have the other 4 characters. So I was like, well, what's his deal? And considering he's in the opening, that does mean that, of course, he ends up living past episode 2, which it seemed like his brain should have melted based on the way his body was, shaking all over the place. But it's like, okay, if he's in the opening, or if that's just a wild trick, they were just like, let's put in the first 2 episodes and then he's just not there, that'd be insane. But I would assume that he's going to live through that. And I don't know what that means for the story, so I'm very curious. It's like, well, what do they get out of that? But love the first 2 episodes. I like all the characters. The acting's good. Of course, they have a ton of big name actors in this, but I really like the story and where it already seems to be headed. Like we already have a main character that basically dies. Then we get a 4-year time skip. So it's like the woman that he was potentially going to end up marrying. She's been kind of mourning this loss for a long time, and so if some of the other people, but obviously not as much as the person that loved the guy. And so they're going through war, and then it's just like poof, here's this mech, and he starts off with saying what he said. I think like the day that he died, and so it's like, all right, well, he comes back. He's super nonchalant about it. It's like, well, you've been seemingly dead for 4 years. And, one of the big questions I had, honestly, was like, well, did his family ever survive? I was really curious. I was like, well, he's alive. He didn't bring that question up either. So maybe that kind of just says, like, they never made it. So, of course, he would have found out some of that extra information within the 4 years. But it was just like, man, this is pretty interesting the way that it played out, because I didn't realize that's how the story was going to kind of take place. I didn't look too much into it because I tend not to want to know anything. I want to just go into it fresh. So it was very fun watching it play out the way that it did. I love the way they used the technology. Everything's just, cyber. It's very, any cyber-based, cyberpunk style movie that you've ever seen where everything's just digital and they just swipe their hands and they bring stuff from TVs over to like right in their faces, stuff like that. Chase's sister doing like an American Idol type of game, and she was live and stuff like that. So I thought that was funny, but it was really cool. And one of my favorite things was, I think it was during the like the initial attack, like their entire room was digital. It was like something on the walls. I didn't know. I didn't bother rewinding it because I was just like, I just kind of want to see what happens next. But it was like the power kind of went down for a minute, and it seemed like literally everything they had was totally fake. Like the wall was like kind of messed up. Like it looked pretty, but technically every single thing they had was just like a digital construct. It wasn't actually like as nice as it looked. And I was like, well, that's very interesting. So like, I don't, considering it's seemingly their next big show, they probably will get into some of the dynamics of that, like actual like high end stuff versus just like, oh, this is just like the digital phasing over it, or does everything look crappy and it's like you can either afford to hide it or you can't, and that's kind of how people live. But I like the way they kind of played it off. And then of course the battle itself is like, well, what is it? There's this crazy war where these people come down. Honestly, I thought they were aliens when it first happened. I thought that they were just straight up aliens because, once again, I went into the show fresh, so I'm like, I can't tell if this is like an alien attack or just other people, because they seem to be the only ones that have like this crazy floating digital virus thing that kills people off. But they have like insurgents because the one soldier aims at a family and the guy like waves him off, and then he pulls up like this thing with the symbol on it, and his wife was like super shocked that they're like the Nazis basically, just to keep it simple, and she was like super shocked that her husband was this guy. And so I was like, all right, that's interesting. And that's the first 2 episodes, so that's all they really touched on it. But I like that idea. There are obviously different ideals going on. These are like, they're seen as kind of the terrorists within this series, but they also have a really big organization. Otherwise they wouldn't be able to just like drop onto New York and just start attacking people. So it's really insane. Like it's really crazy to see how some of this stuff is going to end up playing out. We found out that one of the characters, still learning everyone's name. All I have is Chase and Miranda at this point because I'm terrible at names to begin with. But we have the woman who's basically, like the yellow Power Ranger, because they, especially when I saw the opening, I was like, oh, it's the Power Rangers. Like, it was the exact colors, and it just made me laugh. It always does. If it's 5 people and then 5 different colors, they're the Power Rangers, and if it's 4 people, they're the Ninja Turtles. But you have to be very specific with Ninja Turtles. That like every color on Earth has been a Power Ranger. So anytime it's just 5 people, I'm just like, that's Power Rangers. That's all I ever think of, unfortunately. But the woman in yellow, we find out that in the second episode, she used to be a spy, but she kind of turned on them for whatever reason. So I thought that was interesting. It's like, okay, so we can get some interesting content from her. Probably learn a bit more about this war and how she got wrapped up in it and why she chose one side and then flipped to the other. So there's a lot of stuff that I think is going to be very entertaining to watch from this show, from the crazy war element and then the political element of this war and why people choose the sides that they do, especially considering, New York seems to be mostly free of these people until they come in and attack. And like I said, they have their insurgents or people who may have left the life behind. They used to be a part of it. So it's just like, I'm not fighting anymore, but hey, I was one of you guys. Stuff like that is the questions have already built up. So I'm definitely looking forward to the rest of the series. Can't wait for episode 3 tomorrow. But all in all, this was a really good start for the series. Like I said, once again, just opening song was really good. I love the visuals for it. It reminds me of some show that I totally can't think of right now. It's like some old like Nicktoons show which I just never actually watched. But a lot of the shows on there, like I do remember Iron Man Armored Adventures look just like this show, just not as clean. But there's a lot of stuff like that. Like Nicktoons did a bunch of that where they did like the cell shaded CG 3D type stuff. So reminds me of that. It looks insanely amazing compared to that stuff, which is years old now. But it looks good. The acting is well done. I'm really excited to see the characters develop more, because we already get like the introduction to the rest of the pilots in episode 2, and then we find out at the very end like you have to be in sync in order to actually do it, which obviously based on the opening, we know that those characters are going to be fine. But very excited to see how ultimately all this stuff ends up playing out for the series. Once again, going into it fresh, I have no idea if they already have like a set plan to go like this certain length, or if they're just kind of writing it out until it's not popular. But at this point, I think it's been a really strong opening for the series in pretty much all realms. I think they kind of hit it out of the water with the first 2 episodes. I think they did a great job. And it's interesting that they didn't just make an hour-long episode, since they, basically put it out that way. But it makes sense, considering how it ultimately plays out. It's like, yeah, you in the first episode where the main character, basically comes back to life. So I thought it was a good way to kind of play things out with this first hour of the series. I thought, we get a great introduction to all the characters, their relationships, and it kind of puts it in. And right now we have like a single face as far as the villains actually are concerned. And his brain may or may not have actually melted. Who knows what the heck is going to be going on with him. But I'm really excited for that, just because of the fact that they already find out that he's a spy. In the episode, he's actually introduced, but somehow he stays a part of the series. So he could just be a prisoner the whole time. But I don't know. I feel like there's going to be some extra stuff going on with his character. So I'm looking forward to that. But in general, I think this was a really good start to the series, and I'm definitely looking forward to this. So I'm going to be doing weekly reviews for this. Hopefully they won't all be, basically a week late. But I'll definitely be doing weekly reviews for this, especially since Ruby has ended. This will be the show to kind of take its place for now. But definitely want to know what you guys thought about these first 2 episodes. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And of course, with these first 2 episodes of this new series, I want to know what you guys want to see going forward, what your predictions are based on everything we've been given, what you don't want to see, maybe things like that. So good, bad, what you guys thought about these first 2 episodes in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.